final final segment, I guess you could say, topic here, guys. This is going to get interesting because I don't know. I haven't checked the poll question yet. I don't know how people were voting. I woke up this morning and had several comments of people saying Bill Belichick's a cheater. He doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. I feel like that's a slippery slope. I really do. We had a little bit of a conversation in our Patreon group this morning about it, and I just named off a few things that kind of came to mind in terms of people who have been accused of cheating in the past. Man, I feel like this is a slippery slope, okay, that we're going down here in terms of if we just decide Bill Belichick doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame because of Deflategate, because of Spygate, all that stuff, right? But let's kind of get it kicked off where it all started. So Ari Miroff tweeted this out from the ESPN report. Bill Polian was a vocal figure in the Hall of Fame deliberations involving Bill Belichick, with Spygate and Deflategate coming up among voters during discussions. Per a voter, so we got a source that actually voted on this Bill Belichick into the Hall of Fame or not thing, which, by the way, if you haven't heard, first ballot Bill Belichick is not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, which is wild to think about. But again, we'll get to the poll question here in a second. Make sure you guys get your vote in, okay? The poll question is already up here on YouTube and X. So Bill Polian was a vocal figure, blah, 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 with the discussions. Per a voter who spoke anonymously, all right, Polian, the former Bills and Colts GM and longtime Patriots rival, told some voters he believed Belichick should, quote, wait a year, end of quote, as penance for Spygate. So this gets leaked out, and Ari Miroff, I think everybody on Twitter, for the most part, is making their opinion known. It seems like the large majority of the media people, like, that are tweeting this stuff out are like, what are we doing? They're totally against, like, Bill Belichick should be a first ballot Hall of Famer, right? And Ari had tweeted out before, this is a terrible look for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. No other way to say it. Now, I see people saying Roger Goodell should step in and this and that. Guys, understand, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is separate from the NFL. Now, I'm sure the NFL helps fund and all that, and we know they're really the only pro league that's relevant right now. But the Pro Football Hall of Fame, they don't answer to Roger Goodell, right? They're their own entity. So just understand that. And I had to do a little research on that. I think it was last year to understand. Now, we got other people chiming in here. Diana Rossini tweeted out, as one current head coach put it, quote, if you can't take your personal emotion out of this, then you shouldn't be a voter. And then obviously Diana Rossini tweeted this out. At a time when football leans harder than ever into analytics, maybe it's time Hall of Fame voting does the same. If this were strictly about numbers, the conversation would be over. Bill Belichick won 6 Super Bowls. No one else has done that. Analytics would say he's an automatic entry, yet here we are. So again, it's all about emotion, right? That's essentially what we're coming down to, is you've got people that don't like Bill Belichick and they do not think he should be in the Hall of Fame. That's essentially what we're talking about here, right? Now, with all the stuff that the alleged cheating, right? The Deflategate, the Spygate and everything. I thrown this up, and these are just random thoughts that came to me this morning as I was actually, one of them came, I think Chewy actually mentioned one as well. But the first thing that comes to mind for me with Deflategate, you guys remember when this happened? Aaron Rodgers was very vocal. Now, I want you to think about the slippery slope we're heading down here. Aaron Rodgers said, well, first of all, let's key in on Tom Brady. Does this mean Tom Brady doesn't get in first ballot? Because Bill Belichick had nothing to do with the deflated footballs. That was supposedly Tom Brady. Belichick didn't get suspended for that. Belichick knew nothing about the deflated footballs. It was Tom Brady and the trainer evidently having air taken out of the footballs. Now, this is still not a slam dunk, by the way. They were playing in a cold weather game. Balls, you could take those balls, put them outside for an hour, right? And then measure them, which they measured them at the end of the game, right? If it's a cold weather game, the ball's going to lose a little bit of air pressure. Now, to the point that they did, I don't know. I'm not a scientist, right? However, I don't even know if scientist would be the right term there. Aerologist. What would you call it, guys? Deflatologist. I don't know. Anyway, put that to the side. Belichick didn't have anything to do with deflating the footballs. If Tom Brady preferred the balls be less deflated, so here's what you got to, if we're doing this, guys, Tom Brady is not a first ballot Hall of Famer. That's what you're saying. That's a precedent you're setting, right? Now, here's the other thing. The years of Deflategate and the deflated football, let's throw those out the window. Okay, let's say you can't count those now then. He's still got 4 Super Bowls. What the hell are we doing? So this all comes back to, and this is just my opinion. I'm not saying I'm right and anybody else is wrong, but this is coming back to now that personal vendetta that Diana Rossini was talking about here, right? So if you can't remove your emotions from the voting process, you know what this reminds me of? Remember Aaron Rodgers, the MVP year, when Hub Arkish allegedly said that he was not going to vote Aaron in because of his stance on vaccines? It's like, okay. And of course, Aaron, we need to get that soundbite of him saying he's an absolute bum, right? Now, Aaron went on to win the MVP anyway, but that really kind of pulled the curtain back a little bit with some of this voting. Like, what? You're going to say because he has a different stance on vaccination that should determine whether he should be the MVP or not, or shouldn't be the MVP, I should say? That's wild. That really was mind-boggling to me. Now, let's go back to the Deflategate. When this all came out with Deflategate, do you guys know what Aaron Rodgers said? Pausing for dramatic effect. Aaron Rodgers said, yes, I always have our guys overinflate the football and see if we can get it to pass by unnoticed, because I've got large hands, and the tighter the football, the tighter the spiral, you can throw the ball a lot better, right? And I see the super chats. Thank you, guys. We're going to hit them at the end here. Thank y'all so much. So does that mean Aaron Rodgers shouldn't be a first ballot Hall of Famer? I'm going to take a sip here for just y'all think about that for a second. Aaron Rodgers basically said, I have our guys overinflate the footballs. I love that he had the huevos to come out in public and say that, kind of in defense of Tom Brady. Like, what are we doing here? Everybody has their preference with the footballs, right? Now, it becomes, well, the trainer took the balls into the bathroom out of camera shot, and they think they deflated them in there and this and that. If the Colts had won that game, this wouldn't even been talked about. This is sour apples to me. This is, I don't know, it's just wild. So anyway, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? If you're saying that Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Famer for that stuff, then you damn sure better not let Tom Brady get in first ballot. If you're saying that Bill Belichick's not a first ballot Hall of Famer because of this, I'll tell you another one. How about steroids? Anyone who's tested positive for steroids, do you now hold them out? Do you hold anyone on that team out? Do you have to remove the ring, the Lombardi trophy for those said teams if they have players that tested positive for performance enhancers at any point in their career? It's obvious they were cheating. This is a slippery slope. That's why I said that. So I just responded in the chat too. I think it was Josh Martin. Josh Martin disagreed. And listen, respect your opinion, Josh. This isn't a shot at you. I won't read your comment. I don't want it to come across like I'm dunking. But I just said you better be ready to keep a whole bunch of others out, including Green Bay Packers. As Chewy just stated, they cheated by getting their hands on the 49ers openers. You guys remember that? Somebody had left the openers, the first 15 or 20 plays that were scripted against the Niners, right? They had found it in the back area or whatever, locker room area of the 49ers facility, and whoever it was that found it took it to the coaches, and they used that as information. Isn't that cheating? If we're going to be all noble and nobody's cheating across the league, right? Nobody's cheating across the league, then shouldn't the Packers be penalized for that? Shouldn't they have had to go, oh, hey, guys, we stumbled onto your 15 openers. We, just so you know we had them, you might want to change those. What are we doing here, right? I love that Chewy brought that up because Chewy was on that team. You know what I'm saying? So I a little bit of respect there for that. I talked about Aaron Rodgers. Here's the other thing too. Bill Polian, GM for the Colts, right? Do you guys know, and I said this in the chat, I said, ironically, the guy who led this charge against Belichick got caught popping in extra stadium noise. You guys remember that? Also, there were several other teams. I'll mention that in a second. But when it comes to, let's stick with Polian for a second. They basically got caught popping in extra noise into their stadium in Indianapolis. You've heard it over and over and over. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning joking about it. Peyton Manning has all but admitted that they did that, right? Because he laughs about it every time. That's against the rules as well. Does that mean that Peyton Manning's Super Bowl or Peyton Manning shouldn't have been voted in to the Hall of Fame? You see how there's only one guy kind of being penalized here? And it just so happens that one guy is hated by Bill Polian and Robert Kraft, which, by the way, Robert Kraft is up for Hall of Fame as well. If you guys haven't watched the documentary, I think it's called The Dynasty or whatever it is, go and watch it. And it's literally a hit piece by the Kraft family on Bill Belichick is what it is, to the point that the players hated it. The Patriot players, when they seen the final product, even people that were involved in it, I think it's called The Dynasty. Even the players that were involved in it were like, that, yeah, we didn't expect it to look like that. Because it was basically a hit piece out on it. So you've got Robert Kraft, who, by the way, Robert Kraft, he hasn't been perfect either. I think we would all agree. And didn't he benefit from the same championship? So why is he getting a pass, but Bill Belichick isn't? Belichick wasn't involved in Deflategate. That was Tom Brady, right? So if he wasn't involved, then he's getting penalized for that. Robert Kraft wasn't involved either. I don't think his old ass, hobbled into the bathroom and let the air out of the balls, right? So does he get a pass? Why does he get a pass? Does that mean he can't get in now? You're seeing now. That's my stance. Again, that's how I feel. Now, I said in terms of Spygate, it says spyware, but I meant Spygate. There were a minimum of 4 other teams who were doing the same thing, watching and filming practice. Y'all know that? That was widely. I think the Bears were one. I want to say the Packers were one, but I could be wrong. I think the Packers, it was mentioned that they had people watching, in the facility watching. Look at training camp every year. Why aren't fans allowed to film practice, right? Because they don't want that footage getting out. But the reality is there are people from NFL teams that go around and watch training camp practice of these teams that have open practices. That happens. But yet, Belichick, he's the only one that's going to be penalized. I don't know. It's just wild. It's really, really weird, really strange. So I just said that's a big old can of worms that you're going to open up, right? Another one too, Al Davis. If you guys don't know this, the drainage at the old Coliseum that in Oakland, where the Raiders played back in the day, where they won all these championships, right? Where they were, I don't know how many they won, but they were a dominant team in the 70s. The drainage sucked at that stadium. So when it would rain, the field would get drenched, right? Al Davis would have the landscaping crew, right? The grounds crew or whatever, turn on the sprinklers the night before, flood the field so it's a sloppy mess to a certain extent where they knew they had to wear, taller, deeper cleats, deeper spikes, right? The Raiders did, and that would give them an advantage. Does that mean all the Raiders championships should be forfeited? Does that mean that Al Davis, John Madden, and all the Hall of Famers for the Raiders shouldn't have got in first ballot? Again, you got a different set of rules. The other, they would have the training staff put a cast. I can't remember the player's name, but I think there was multiple. There was definitely one that was known for it. He was a linebacker for the Raiders. They would have him put an extra hard cast on his arm so he could knock guys out. He could use it like he was swinging a club. Like imagine you ever broke your arm and the cast you get. Imagine swinging that at players' helmets. They would do that to get a little bit of an advantage as well. So again, man, it's a slippery slope, and it's something that I probably sound like I'm a little more. What am I trying to say here? A little more passionate about this than I actually am. But it's mind-boggling though how people were just, nope, he's a cheater. Like he's the only one that cheated. So yeah. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. That's been sports from day one. I mean, shout out to Beer Cheese Benny, who's got a NASCAR podcast now, and he's an avid, listener of Packernet podcast. Probably not this one as much, but he loves Packernet podcast. Calls in from time to time on there. It's called the NASHoles podcast, I think it is. So, back in the day, and I don't want to get too deep into this, so people are not tuning in to listen to NASCAR, but they used to put lead shot in the frame rails of the NASCAR cars so they would make weight, because you got to weigh the cars. And this is, we're trying to think, Mr. Boogity. What is his name? I can't believe it's escaping me right now. Waltrip, DW, Darrell Waltrip, called NASCAR Racing on Fox Forever. He was laughing about this on the Dale Jr. podcast, talking about this. And what they would do is they would fill lead shot into the frame rails of the car, and they would make weight. And then halfway through the race, he had a little lever that he would pull, and it would throw the lead shot out on the track. And now your car's lighter all of a sudden for the second half of the race. They used to do that all the time, right? That stuff goes on all throughout. NASCAR has been, everybody's always trying to find an advantage there, right? Obviously, that was illegal. You're lying about the weight of the car. Does that mean anybody who ever did that in NASCAR shouldn't be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame? It's just, again, slippery slope, man. Slippery slope. That's just kind of a cross reference. The same thing with steroids, right? You've banned a certain number of people from Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. You know who I would ban if it were me? I would ban anybody at the top of Major League Baseball that allowed that crap. That allowed that crap to happen, rather than just, oh, we're just going to ban the players. Who was the commissioner at the time? Who were the managers of the teams? Who were overseeing this stuff and allowing it to happen? Then all of a sudden, we're going to ban baseball players from the Hall of Fame. And don't get me started on Pete Rose. That is what it is. So anyway, it's a football podcast. I just think the parallels are really, really interesting there in that regard. Now let's go to the poll question. We asked everybody on X to vote over there. Looks like we got 70 votes on X. And then here in YouTube, we have 92 votes. So decent little sample size, almost to 100 on both of them. I'll put the X one up and we'll read. So we asked you, the fans, the listeners, the viewers. All right. Here is what we've got. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? Once again, it was an extremely loud minority that was disagreeing that he should be in, because it's 95.7%, just jumped up to 95.8%. Thanks, Uncle Bill, who just voted on that. 95.8% yes, 4.2% no. So it's unanimous. Everybody thinks this is absolutely stupid that Bill Belichick didn't make it first ballot. Now let's go to the YouTube votes. 92 votes in here on YouTube. Same question. Should Bill Belichick have been voted into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot? 80% says yes. 20% says no. All right. So, man, if you took the average between the two, what would that put you? Settle, let's just call it 85%. 85% of our viewers think Bill Belichick should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer. Roughly 15% would say no if you took the two polls, obviously. So pretty wild, man. Pretty wild. Joseph in the chat says, yeah, I'm just going to pretend you said, where's it at? God, it's always so hard to find. Why is it so hard to find on here? It's been shuffled around so many times. Joseph said, I'm just going to pretend you said
65%.
65%. That's what we. So there you go. All right. I'm curious to know if you guys are watching this video back later. Let us know in the comments. How do you feel about the Bill Belichick situation? Should he be in? Should he not be in? I think everybody agrees he's going to get in. It's just, it was kind of weird that he didn't get on the first ballot. But let us know in the comments, what do you think about the Bill Belichick thing? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you don't miss out on any future live streams. All right, let's wrap the show up.